So thank you, Martin. I will show you something different, actually. I'm here representing a small association in Switzerland called BIM and Fire Protection. In a nutshell, why or what are we doing? We consist of different representatives of different companies, architects, other designers, authorities, giving the building permission out, and as well, obviously, fire protection experts as well. And what do we do? Gunnar already mentioned it in the panel discussion before. We have BIM for visualization. But then there's the information which we need to go to the automation that Michael before showed us in a very beautiful way. So this is our goal. We need to have like uniform information requirements. For now, for fire protection, there's one use case, but obviously for other things as well. Yeah, you might ask ourselves, why are we needed as an association, as like different companies joining up together? Well, we have a designing phase, and we hand over a project to the authorities to getting the building permit. Those days, this is all 2D. To be honest, we're not there yet, but we want to be, of course. When we hand in a 2D plan with all the information for the fire protection, the guys in the authorities of the government, they know what to do. They know what to respond to us. So the process is ongoing for years and years now. Everyone knows what to do. This is how it looks like today. It's a fire protection plan for the building permit. We have the doors, we have walls, but all of these things in colors, obviously, and symbols, it's basically information, right? It's information converted on a 2D plan. But everyone knows how to read this language. Now, what do we do if we hand in a model? It's basically a 3D wall with an information. It's more or less the same, it should be the same information, but people, or at least the authority and the government, they don't know how to read that. They don't know what to do, and they don't know how to respond. We are trying to change that, of course. So, why are we needed? There are no standards. Swiss people love standards, so this is a very good thing, but there are no standards. And we have small projects, we have small companies, as we mentioned, and everyone is trying their best. But everyone is doing it in another way. And if we could establish some standards, or at least some best practices, we would not waste that much time on trying to figure out what to do. So we could save, in the whole building community in Switzerland, we could save so much time, and nerves, of course. And often the fire protection is left out. So we are not there as in Norway. We don't have BIM in every project. But if we do have, specialists like fire protectioners are often left out because they usually don't have an own model. So what do? They just speak to them, try, whatever. But I experienced in various projects that they are left out in the process of BIM. So we need to change that. And I would say there's not one way we can work together with specialists as fire protectioners. We can do this low-tech. You can sit in front of a computer, you give him the information back and forward, you type it into the BIM. Why not? You could do this by Excel, as Michael showed it. It's like one way to do that. I would say that's like maybe mid-tech or low-tech. Doesn't matter because you do deal with information. You could do it with a separate fire protection model, which you take out from the architecture, or a new one, doesn't matter, it's information. And we can hopefully one day go to the automatical stage, so you don't have to generate an own fire protection model, but in the end, it's information. And there should not be one way how to deal, but there should be one information requirement, or there is actually one information requirement that we need for the building permit. So in the project I showed you before, they used the mid-tech version. They took the architect's model. We implemented fire protection informations on the rooms, on the walls, but they cannot go back with that. But they can check it at each other again. So what have we achieved as association yet? We established an exchange information requirement for the building permit. So we know what the client in this point, it's actually the government, the authority, what information they need, and we broke it down. That's just like one tiny bit of this exchange requirement. But we broke it down to each element. We broke it down on the IFC standard, what information and where to put. So we can use this in several projects, in several authorities, in several regions. This is one big result. But the other one is we developed a new approach. Because now we are basically just typing, or we were typing the information just on the elements. But there's usually, when we design a building, there's the client. There's the user in first place. So you order a school or you order an office building. This means you have different requirements and you have rooms that you will use. And the rooms are usually, or actually always, giving the requirements for the fire protection. So why don't we start with the rooms? So the rooms are giving us the requirements. How many people are in this room? So now we have to have higher requirements on the wall because we have a lot of people in this room, right? It's different to a small office where just 2 people work every day. From these zones or rooms, we put requirement information. This generates a requirement to the elements in between, for example, the wall. So there should be a planned information. So we plan the meeting standard to meet the requirement of the room. And in the end, on the construction side, there will be a performance value which has to meet, obviously, the planned value we have on the wall coming from the requirement. So these are like the 3 steps, and we are putting those 3 steps all into the BIM. And this way of work, this approach, does not only work for fire protectionists, obviously. We can use this for soundproofing, we can use this for construction physics. So the goal is to not only do this for fire protection as we do today, we could roll this out for other specialist disciplines. So coming back to this exchange information requirements, we put the requirement itself on the room, and we used the international standards of IFC as far as we could. Only where we couldn't find a container for our information, we added this to the IFC standards, but we are always going with the standard in case we can. Showing that in a small metric, we found out that on the building components like walls, doors and stuff, we could mostly put the information in a container that's already provided by IFC, but the spatial elements where we put the requirements is not there yet. Maybe because we have a different approach than all the other countries. I will be happy to be discussing this with all of you guys in the next break. But we found out we have to add there more of the information stuff. But maybe we can change that as well in the IFC standard. But that's just what we found today. So just very shortly, how we achieved that, how we did that, and what did we do? We actually followed the information delivery manual. So we firstly established the process. It's the same as we do in VDC certification, right? We write down the process which is today and then the new process we want to have. With spatial concepts, with fire protection concepts. So first the requirements on the room, then you plan the values on the walls, and then you go and hand it in to the authority. Then we broke it down to single transactions. So what do we have to hand over to whom, and what information does he need in the BIM, and what information does he gives back, and what's the container of that information in the BIM. Just to show you a picture of the project we did. So this is an example for the spaces, the rooms we put on the requirements. So every color is one fire protection department. So the yellow ones belong together, then there's another requirement to the blue or to the orange one. In the next step, there's the value on the BIM, on the walls and on the doors, matching these requirements. And if you line those together, then you'll see the horizontal rescuing way or the vertically, and what this means for the values on the wall. So to sum this up with challenge and outlook, Swiss people love perfectionism and we love standards. So as long as we cannot roll this out in a lot of projects, there will be a lot of skeptic. So we are there since 5 years working on this. We finally managed to find people who will try it with us. So we are doing this in projects now, and when we can show that, we will get there. But until then, the perfectionism says, ooh, I'm not sure if this is gonna work, right? So, and the authorities, they are not there yet as well, but we are working on that. We have a project with the capital city of Bern. They will now take this model, the BIM model, and will check it, and will set up this process, how to get there, to be a good example for all the other authorities, and then we can show them it's actually possible, right? And not to mention all the barriers. We have a lot of different authorities. We have a lot of different languages, actually. We have 4 languages in Switzerland. So they're very small regions, and we have to convince them all to get there. So the outlook, as I mentioned, we recently partnered up with 2 big construction companies who will do this in project, and with one government who is going to check this particular project for the information, and then we'll see how we get there and if we can convince the other peoples. So we will be testing the approach and the way we are doing it, and we will challenge it, of course, and we will validate if the exchange requirements, if it's enough. Did we forget something, or maybe is there too much? So we need to challenge this with the, obviously, construction industry. And then we can expand to other use cases of the fire protection until the handover to the client and stuff like that. So our goal is to prove it's possible, and we are there. So ask me half a year where we are, because the rollout for the project is next week. Thank you very much.